Well, hello, students. Here we are going into the online week and coming into week 5, which is one of the most important weeks in this course. And it is about exploring groups and teams and organizations. So this week we want to identify and describe the stages of group development and how groups are affected by different roles and different norms. The thing is, when you work with groups, you want to establish an equilibrium of some type. Not everyone is going to agree on all parts of group processes. We all might have the same goals, but we all have a different way or assume a different way to achieve them. So, we're going to look at how organizational processes, culture that are integrated in the process, because the process is the skill set, and the structure. Yes, the structure of how the team is put together versus the structure of the strategy that the team is going to work on. This is going to influence individual and group behavior. So the objectives this week are going to be to try to identify stages of group development and the implication for team performance. And what happens when we have role conflict? Again, everyone comes into a team with different values. People think they know the best way to get something done. Sometimes that causes conflict. So again, we have to find that equilibrium and try to get rid of that ambiguity on the performance. In other words, we have to try to all get on the same page. And we're going to contrast threats to group effectiveness and the consequences when effectiveness isn't happening because team members either don't trust each other. We know the old adage, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Some people think that they know more than others. So we kind of go through the 5 stages of group development, which is forming. Then the next thing, as you know, is storming. Okay? People are going to learn about each other real quick, and they're not going to agree. But again, finding that equilibrium puts us into an area of norming. Okay, where we all find where we want to be on the same page as it relates to the strategy. And then we're going to evaluate what we've done once we do our norming, and then we're going to report feedback. Feedback is so important at all times. How can we go further if we don't know where the stop gaps are? How can we go further if we don't know how well we're doing? So this is going to be important. We're going to look at characteristics and competencies of strong teams and sometimes why teams fail. Identifying the strategies to build cooperation and trust are the most important part of any team effort. If you don't trust each other, you can't build a good strategy. And then finally, we're going to talk about describing high performance team leadership. Leadership is so important in a team. If you don't trust the leader doesn't trust you, and a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, team is going to fail. You have to have that synergy, that continuity, where information not only flows from the top down, it also flows from the bottom up and laterally. You got to think of all this. So this week we're going to be covering chapters 10, 11, and 12. In the textbook, you have your slides with your notes. You got the Harvard Business Review. They're going to talk a lot about emotional intelligence. We heard so much about it these days. What is EI? And not only is it relates to the individual, but also how emotional intelligence, this is a really good article with HBR. You want to know how this emotional intelligence relates to group intelligences. That's right. How do we put the efforts of the whole team into a group? We're going to, and also read the article on Edgar Schein on dialogue, culture, and organizational learning. It's really good. And then there is a video on the Marcus Buckingham, uh, and what that video is about. Basically, it's talking about the business case for strengths, short and long versions based on your time and your interest. Again, sometimes talking about the work life balance. How does each thing really fall into the other? They're an integration of both on the work life balance. Next, remember the Titans. Look at that video. This is a video that, God, I think I've seen it 1,000 times. And I mentioned this earlier, forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. That the adjourning part is when you put the feedback in and say, see you later, I'm done. But you got to go through the process. Then there's the video on the 5 distinctions that create a dynamic team. Another video on the 4 stages of team formation. Another video on the 4 traits of healthy teams. All good stuff. And how to start a movement. There's a last video. So try to get through a lot of these videos because they're really, really helpful in understanding the dynamics of team performance. Then you got your DQs, your assignment, and which is your second reflection paper. And let's look at the group assignment. Send me feedback of how you're coming. It says final group assignment, and the assignment that you're doing is an individual one for your final paper. But we could talk about this in week 5 when we get together. I'm sorry. Yeah, week 5. When we get together, we can certainly talk about how we are going to get into maybe a slideshow with everyone. I put you guys in teams. Maybe we can get our individual teams that we had set up last class in the library. And maybe what we can do is put everyone's project on a team slide presentation and do teams A and B again. I don't know. It's just a thought. But the important is your individual assignment. We'll figure it out. So here again, we had, this is, if I said week 5, we're not in week 5, we're in week 4 for this online week. Next time we get together is week 5. We're going to think of the hybrid model. And then finally, week 6, our last online week, and we'll be talking about navigating conflict. The whole week is about conflict in organizations, and that's what brings everything down. So that's just looking ahead to week 6, where, I want to be discussing your projects, maybe do a group exercise. Should be a fun thing. And then we'll really hit it hard on conflicts. And then the last week, week 7, we're going to be talking about organizational design, effectiveness, and change management. And that's when you will be putting together, presenting your final projects. They'll be all done. We'll be discussing them. And like I say, week 5, when we get together again in person, week from this Saturday, we can be talking. I'm sorry about my voice. Allergies are horrible this week. I know I sound like the Godfather here. Week 7, we can really get together and have some fun. Like I said, we could talk about a potluck on week 5. All right, guys, that is it. Have a wonderful week, and you know how to reach out to me if you need me. Remember, snail mail is slow. If you need to get me, use the text 617-842-2856. Again, have a wonderful week.